Iran, the rise of the Sassanid Empire. This is what a lot of nationalist Iranians keep having wet dreams about. They dream of the day. This is what a lot of anti-Islam nationalist Iranians do before they go to sleep. They think about the Hachemenish Empire, the Sassanid Empire, and they jerk off to that idea of one day going back there. And they like, yes, yes. This is what they think about when they're making love to their wives or husband. This is what gets them hard. And this is why they blame. This is what they blame Islam for taking away from them. This is why some of them are extremely racist, because this ended because of the Arab invasion. But we'll see. We'll see. So the last empire before the Arabs invaded Iran and made it Islamic, they were called the Sassanid Empire, right? So we'll see how the Sassanid Empire came to be and how it is stopped, right? So it's interesting because the Sassanid Empire, right now, if you look at Iran's Islamic Republic, all the proxies everywhere the Islamic Republic has some influence, kind of matches where the Sassanid Empire was. By the way, right now what you're looking on the screen is not the Sassanid Empire. I think this is before, but we'll get there. We'll get there. Let's look at this. Let's see how Iran became Muslim. Let me know if you have the audio. Oh, by the way, AGA is saying audio is good, and Soha is saying audio is good. Thank you so much, you guys, for always confirming this. And look, everybody in the live chat. Katie is here. Deborah is here. British Pakistani Atheist is here. I saw above where Hindu Historian is here. Okay, cool. Guys, if you remember, I'm going to try to pay attention to highlighting your comments. But if I miss anything, apologies ahead of time. Oh, yeah, Soraya is here. Hello. Alright, let's start.
How did the Sassanid Empire conquer the Middle East? We are in the 3rd century, a period when the Roman Empire was at its biggest. More to the east, many conflicts happened. The Parthian Empire was weakened by internal problems and wars with Rome.
So the Parthian Empire is before the Sassanid Empire, just for you guys to. By the way, I have to learn these English names because these are the Persian names for these empires are kind of different. Sassanid is like Sassanian, Parthia is like Pars.
This problem created instability, and not long after, Ardashir I, a local Iranian ruler of Persis.
Or look, the statue says Ardashir Awwal Padishah Iran. So this is Ardashir. He's like a king for the Parthian Empire, which is before the Sassanid Empire.
A local Iranian ruler of Persis from Estakhr started conquering the surrounding territories controlled by the Arsacid dynasty, who ruled the Parthian Empire. Ardashir confronted the Parthian king, Artabanus V, at the
So this guy is attacking the Parthian Empire.
Battle of Hormozdan on the 28th of April, 224 AD. The Parthian king was defeated and killed. This marked the end of the Parthian Empire and the start of the Sassanid dynasty and a new era for the Persians.
This is the Sassanid dynasty is the last Zoroastrian empire that ruled over Iran. Everything after this is going to be Islamic.
When many people hear about the Persian Empire, they are probably thinking about that ancient empire that fought against the Greeks. But
the Hachemenish, which for the English people, okay, so the two main empires that Iranians jerk off to is the Sassanid Empire, which was right before the Arabs invaded, but the earlier one is the Hachemenish Empire, which I think in English is called something stupid like Achaemenid something, I don't know. That one's way older, okay?
But the Persian history is more than that. There were other Persian empires called by their dynastic rule. The most important ones. The Achaemenid Empire.
Oh, there we go. The Achaemenid. This is Hachemenish, and in English they call it the Achaemenid Empire. This is like way before. And guess what? It's interesting because a lot of Iranians love the Achaemenid Empire more than the Sassanid Empire, even though they like these are like neo-Zoroastrians that also jerk off to the idea of Iran becoming Zoroastrian again. Even though most of what we know about Zoroastrianism today, and most of the ideas and the symbolism of the Zoroastrianism doesn't come from the Achaemenid Empire. The Sassanid Empire is the closest visually, symbolically value. The Sassanid Empire is much more recent than the Achaemenid Empire. But for some reason, they like the Achaemenid Empire more than the Sassanid Empire. You know why? You know why? You can see on the picture, right? Look at this. Because these people, everything is about size to these people, okay? So this is the Sassanid Empire. Look at the borders of the Sassanid Empire, and then look at the borders of the Achaemenid Empire. Hold on.
The Achaemenid Empire.
This is way before the Achaemenid Empire. Look at that.
50 to 3.
This is why they like it more, because it was a bigger, because it was a more powerful empire that ruled half of the civilized world as they knew it. And like, yeah, so they can't pick, yeah, so they pick and choose between them. Let me see. Armin is teaching history today. Oh no, Achaemenid Empire, yeah. Hachamenid. I don't know who came up with this English name and where this Achaemenid comes from. It's Hachamenid.
330 BC.
This was 330 BC. Okay, hold on. I know this stuff. I remember this stuff from school.
Empire. 550 to 330 BC.
Yeah.
This one.
330 BC. You know who ended the Achaemenid Empire? You guys know? You guys know? You know, guys? Huh? So who the Great? Who the Great? Who ended this empire? It was Alexander who ended the Achaemenid Empire at 330 BC.
One was the dynasty that fought the Greeks.
Right.
The empire that was defeated
Fought the Greeks and lost.
by Greeks under the Macedon rule in the end, when the Alexander's armies marched through the empire, winning battle after battle. His death was followed by many other dynasties and kingdoms, and these.
Yeah, so Alexander didn't have a son, so well, any kid to be fair, and he died, and the empire. So basically, so this is not about the Sassanid Empire. We're trying to follow our tracks all the way from the Achaemenid Empire and see how we got to the Sassanid Empire, and then how the Sassanid Empire ended. So basically, okay, so Alexander the Great ended the Achaemenid Empire, and that's how ending that empire was the major, what made Alexander the Great. Like the great part of the Alexander the Great comes from the fact that he managed to defeat the Achaemenid Empire, and after that, he turned into like a global empire. Right before that, he was like, "Oh, you're just Alexander, I guess. You're Alexander." And then he defeated the Persian Empire, and he became Alexander the Great, and then he went and invaded a whole bunch of other places, right? But that was it. Remember this: Achaemenid Empire was ended by Alexander the Great. Sassanid Empire was ended by the Arabs.
Establishment of Greek rule in some regions.
This is called Hellenization. Okay, so he died, and yeah, so the part of Iran that was when Alexander died, his empire turned into 4 pieces because he didn't have a son. Very much like Muhammad and Genghis. See, this is why I always compare these 3 people together: Alexander the Great, Genghis Khan, and Muhammad. All 3 of them, when they died, Muhammad allegedly, all 3 of them, when they died, their rule got divided. Their influence and their rule and their whatever they stood for got divided between a whole bunch of people. Alexander the Great and Muhammad, both because they didn't have any sons. Genghis Khan, because he had too many sons. He had the opposite problem. The ideal situation for you is to have 1 son, not 0 sons, not 2 sons, 1 son, and many daughters that you could, daughters after you already have your sons, okay? And many daughters that you could just sell left and right for diplomacy, like, hey, you marry my daughter, you marry my daughter, so we could like tie our families together. Daughters are good for diplomacy, sons are good for keeping everything together after you die. Let me see what you guys are saying. Okay, guys, if you keep the talk, keep everything to the keep your comments relative to the topic at hand.
Followed by many other dynasties.
I mean, you can talk about other things, but in the ones that you tag Atheist Republic for me to take a look at, it's easier if it's actually relevant to what we're talking about.
Kingdoms and the establishment of Greek rule in some regions.
Yeah, establishment of Greek rules and values and ideas, that is called Hellenization. Remember that word, Hellenization, okay? So, you know how like you have United States culture and art and their movies and their music all over the planet seems to be somehow influencing everybody, okay? I mean, now the Koreans are doing that as well. But imagine that level of influence over the way people think and what they value and what they want to be like and their fashions, their philosophy, their art, times a million, okay? That is the influence Alexander had over all the areas that he conquered, right? Even after he died, everything high status, becoming, you wanted to look like the Greeks, you want to sound like the Greeks, you want to learn Greek, you want to do their philosophy, you want to build gymnasiums. You were high status if you like. The more you sounded and acted and thought, you want to write like the Greeks. Oh, the stories, like even the older stories that the people had before, they were like, maybe I should rewrite these stories so that it has a structure of how Greek authors write things, okay? Entertainment, everything became Hellenized because apparently the Greeks knew how to do stuff. And everybody was like, if we want to be influential, we have to be like more like the Greeks. Okay, so here. So, let's go back here.
Followed by many other dynasties and kingdoms, and the establishment of Greek rule in some regions. Many Greeks migrated deep into Asia, establishing the Greco-Bactrian kingdom and influencing the region.
Okay, so this is the empire after Alexander died. The Seleucid, is that how you say it in English? Seleucid Empire was left behind, and this is still Greek, even though it's cut in pieces. Egypt got somebody else, and everybody got somebody else. This is still like a Greek rule.
And influencing the region, which was a point of meeting between the ancient Greek, Persian, and Indian cultures. Some centuries after, the Sasanian Empire existed between 224 and 651 AD. This was the last form of the Persian Empire, or the last Persian dynasty before the rise of Islam.
Yeah, this is like where you said a fire nation arrived. This is where Islam arrived. So everything... By the way, everything was not hunky-dory. This is what the Persian nationalists would try to pretend. Like, oh, everything was great. We were an empire. We had superior values. They didn't have superior values, okay? The Greeks had superior values to the Persian Empire, okay? The Greeks had superior... I will tell this to you as an Iranian, okay? These people say like, oh, we were the best of the best of the best. Everything was the best in Iran. Our culture, our science. You didn't have much science, to be fair, okay? I mean, they had some science, but the Greeks had all this. The Romans and the Greek were always superior to the Persians when it comes to their philosophy, when it came to their science, when it comes to organization. They were superior, okay? And I'm telling this to you as an Iranian. Because, hey, if India's in the live chat, see how I'm not doing nationalism, how I'm not being like, oh yeah, we were the best of the best because this is my land and I'm so proud, no, okay? So to be fair, there were some good things that Persian Empire was ahead of other people's other empires, but not much. One of the things that you could give the Cyrus the Great some credit for was this whole idea of the Cyrus the Cylinder and be like, oh yeah, multiculturalism and human rights. Yeah, great. Nothing. Okay, this is what people say. The Cyrus the Great was the first. The Cyrus the Cylinder is the first human rights declaration of all time. They say that. Fair enough. Let's give him that. But again, when it comes to human rights, when it comes to actual representation, when it comes to individualism, it was nothing compared to what the Greeks did. I mean, come on, the Greeks invented democracy. They invented democracy. They invented individualism. So yeah, nothing, not much. I mean, and also the Persian, none of the empires, none of the Persian empires wrote anything much down. Like they weren't very much into reading and writing. I mean, they weren't record keeping. Not much. Okay, so again, then we might have some butthurt Persians in the live chat. I don't know, but one thing else, yeah, they're gonna be like, oh, but they made like roads. Yeah, okay, good, fine. You made roads. You made a lot of roads, okay, and they came up with a post system that was very efficient. Yeah, sure, you have that as well. But again, when it comes to creating systems and structures that was the most efficient, the Greeks and the Romans were ahead of, and that's why you lost. That's why you lost to Alexander the Great. Okay, here, let's continue.
Then, other important dynasties existed, like the Safavid dynasty.
Okay, so here's another thing. Yeah, so after people were like, we used to be an empire until the Arabs defeated us. Well, I mean, technically, you became an empire again. The Safavid dynasty turned you into an empire, but they don't like to talk about the Safavid dynasty because it was Islamic. Okay, so yeah.
1501 to 1736 AD, and the Afsharid dynasty, 1736 to 1798 AD. There are various historical reports about Ardashir's lineage and ancestry. According to Al-Tabari's History of the Prophets and Kings, Ardashir was son of Papak.
Oh yeah, don't trust Al-Tabari on anything. Al-Tabari's history of that guy is unreliable.
Son of Sassan. In other sources, it says that Ardashir was born from the marriage of Sassan, a descendant of Darius III, the ancient Persian king who fought against Alexander the Great.
Yeah, but by the way, who's a descendant of who is usually just a PR move. Like, oh yeah, I am the son of Darius III because I'm gonna be like more relevant, and you guys have to follow me because I'm descendant of that guy. Yeah, when it comes to people claiming that they're descendant of somebody over many centuries, and they had no good record of tracking who's a descendant of who at that time, it's mostly BS. It's mostly somebody just made up something. I mean, and the Islamic Empire does that as well. Like every single person that wants to be like a ruler, like, I'm a descendant of Muhammad. Yeah, sure.
A few centuries before, with the daughter of Papak, a local governor in Pars. Ardashir had an important role in developing the royal ideology. He tried to show himself as a worshipper of Mazda, a local god.
A local god? I think Ahura Mazda was more than just a local god. What the hell? Oh god. A local god? Yeah, just a random local god. He was like, yeah, I worship that god. I think it's a little bit of a misrepresentation of Mazda. Like, okay, sure. I just was like, yeah, I guess I found this god in the ditch somebody made a shrine to, and I've started worshiping him, I guess. What the hell?
Governor in Pars. Ardashir had an important role in developing the royal ideology. He tried to show himself as a worshipper of Mazda, a local god.
A local god.
The intention was to create...
Yeah, that's a huge underrepresentation of... Yeah, Kate is like, yeah, Mazda, a local god. Yeah. Oh, okay.
Stability, and to show people that he has legitimacy. The claim of legitimacy of his reign as a rightful newcomer from the line of mythical Iranian Shahs, and the propagations attributed to Ardashir against the legitimacy and role of the Parthians and the Iranian history sequence show the valuable place that the Achaemenid legacy had in the minds of the first Sasanian Shahanshahs.
Yeah, because those Shahanshahs. Shahanshah means king of the kings. You have to tie yourself to the greatest empire in Persia to just be, to somehow like, yeah, I am of those people. Okay, so that you could become like more... show to people that this is why you're gonna be king. Adam is saying, how about Honda? Well, funny thing, Adam, the whole idea of the name Mazda from the car comes from the god Ahura Mazda. So there's I know this is a joke, but that's where the name Mazda from the car comes from.
though the current belief is that the Sassanians did not know much about the Achaemenids and
Yeah, see, the Sassanids were like, we are of the Achaemenids, we are of those people, and they're like, you have no idea what you're talking about. You're just making stuff up, aren't you?
about the Achaemenids and their status. On the other hand, some historians believe that the first Sassanian Shahanshahs were familiar with the Achaemenids and their succeeding. In the next few years, local rebellions occurred throughout the empire. Nonetheless, Ardashir I expanded his new empire to the east and northwest, conquering the provinces of Sistan, Gorgan, Khorasan, Margiana, in modern Turkmenistan, Balkh, and Khwarezmia. He
This is, again, see, the bigger this gets, the more of a hard on Iranian nationalists will have. They always are like, bigger, bigger, more land. We have to come back. They want to go back to this, okay? For some reason, I mean, who said this is this is such a simple concept, and it's extremely dangerous, okay? The whole idea of, if we are bigger, that means we are more proud, and there's more honor, and we're stronger. This, I don't know who sold this idea to people, but it has managed to convince people all around the world to back up some of the most cruel, violent, anti-humanist positions by their government, in the name of, that's our land, we need to get bigger. And I wonder how many times these people wonder, like, why is it that if my country is bigger, that's better? How many of them, if you think, have they asked themselves that? How many of them are like, maybe our borders don't have to go as far and wide as possible? I mean, I'm not sure how that benefits me personally in my life, but somehow, somewhere, I was convinced that this is a good thing, and this is a source of pride and strength. And because of this, my government today has managed to convince me that even though they're spending money on stuff that is not helping, they're using my taxpayer on doing things that has no direct benefit in my daily life. But I'm cheering them on anyway, because, hey, we're going to be bigger, we're going to be bigger. So, again, I don't know who managed to sell this idea that that's a good thing, but I guess, whoever, this is in the best interest of the shahs and your rulers, and not in your interest, but go ahead and keep cheerleading them. Yeah, exactly, Shane. It's a DICK measuring contest. Again, guys, I don't have a problem with swearing. I love swearing. It's YouTube who's more stupid when it comes to swearing, okay? Swearing is good for your mental health. Swear more often. Blue Fox is saying countries who are unhappy of their current state want to go back, such as the Greek, Iranian, Indian, Greeks as well. I know the Turkish are like that. The Turks want to bring the Ottoman Empire back. I didn't know Greeks were like that. However, notice Japanese, Korean, Chinese don't have this feeling of return back. Yeah, interesting. And yeah, the Japanese don't. I mean, they used to. The Japanese used to want to become an empire, and that really backfired on them. So I think, yeah, maybe not. Maybe we're good. This island, we're okay. that really. Wait, I shouldn't be laughing. When I said backfire, that was like we were talking about the nuclear bombs. Hindu historian saying it's been long enough. We could make jokes. Hindu historian saying one reason a large country has been harmful in the past. Russia was very hard to get organized and mobilized into Western theater of World War I because of how big it is. Yeah. Anyways, yeah. A lot of people think that the bigger you get, the stronger your country is. But sometimes it's the opposite. Sometimes it's that the more borders, the more areas you have to control, eventually it's going to lead to you crumbling because you can't keep everything together. I mean, actually, there's more examples of that. Have less governments. I think, I'm guessing, but there are less examples of countries toppling after they decide, like, hey, you know what, we're going to stay in this corner here, and we're just going to focus on making things better over here instead of trying to expand. I think that has led into less failure and things falling apart than countries like more. Let's have more. I mean, even the British Empire fell at some point because they couldn't, because they're like, yeah, this empire it was very expensive for us to keep, and they're like, you know what? Maybe we don't need an empire. Maybe we could go and to focus on our tiny island, and that would be better. They voluntarily stopped. Like they're like, okay, fuck, screw it. We're not gonna do empire. Um, Oh, Terrell saying, if you talk to Japanese nationalists, I think you will get a different picture. They hate not being able to have an army that could, in theory, attack other countries. Yeah, but that's different. Yeah, so some Japanese people are saying, like, the constitution that we wrote doesn't let us go and, help around the world. But I don't think even the Japanese nationalists today are like, yeah, that needs to be part of Japan now. Like, even the nationalists don't think that like that. They just feel like we need to have some influence around the world, but they don't want to expand their borders beyond what they have today. Soha is saying, I read an article the other day that most of the smart people actually use swearing words. Hey, okay. I mean, obviously, it checks out. I like swearing, and I'm extremely smart. Anyways, let's continue with this video.
Also added Bahrain and Mosul to Sassanids' possessions.
This is what, guys, this Sassanid Empire, these borders is exactly what today's Iranian nationalists, they want to be part of Iran. So they look at the Sassanid Empire's borders and they're like, this needs to be today's Iran. And this is why, pay attention, class. This is why some growing but small movement among Iranians who are anti-Islam and anti-the Islamic Republic are actually supporting the Islamic Republic of Iran right now. And they're backing it and they want it to succeed. Okay? It's weird because they hate Islam, they love Zoroastrianism, but they hate the Islamic Republic of Iran, but they're supporting it anyway. They're supporting the current Islamic government. Because, again, these people are idiots, but what they're noticing is like, hey, look at the Islamic Republic of Iran. I mean, we hate the fact that it's a republic and it's Islamic. We hate republic because we like monarchy, and we hate Islamic because we like Zoroastrianism. But they are managing to be like they're controlling Syria right now. They're controlling Iraq right now. They're controlling where else? Oh, yeah. I mean, this blue stuff has to come over here as well. They're getting more They're trying to get more influential in Bahrain right now. So they're like, yeah, this is actually kind of nice. We like the Islamic Republic. We like this government being like. I mean, they didn't go over here, but it's like, yeah, this is closer to the vision that we have of where Iran should be right now. And they basically dream about the day that all of this, everything here, becomes part of Iran border. So this is why some of these idiots are now supporting the Islamic Republic, even though they hate Islam.
Later Sassanid inscriptions also claim the submission of the kings of Kashan, Turan, and Mekran to Ardashir. Although based on numismatic evidence, it is more likely that these actually...
Oh yeah, Lebanon as well. Yeah, they control Lebanon. They claim to be controlling Lebanon, Iraq, and Syria. But Yemen, Yemen wasn't part. Was Yemen? No, Yemen wasn't part of the borders of the Sassanid Empire. So they like the fact that the reason why they like the fact that they have such an influence in Yemen is because it's like poking at Saudi Arabia, and they hate Saudi Arabia. This is one idea that unites many Iranians, whether when they're religious or not religious, when they're for Islam, anti-Islam, nationalist, anti-nationalist. A lot of Iranians, the one thing that they agree on, this is what brings them together, is their hatred for Saudi Arabia. Bye, Ghost Bunny. Okay.
Evidence.
Yeah, I agree. Qasim, Islamic Republic is a paradox. I agree with you.
It is more likely that these actually submitted to Ardashir's son, the future Shapur I. Shapur I continued the expansion of the empire, conquering Bactria and the western portion of the Kashan Empire, while leading several campaigns against Rome, invading Roman Mesopotamia, but then he lost his conquests. Shapur had intensive development
I've seen this in person.
plans. He ordered the construction of the first dam built in Iran and founded many cities, some settled in part by immigrants from the Roman territories, including Christians who could exercise their faith freely under Sassanid rule. During the reign of Bahram I, the Sassanid capital Ctesiphon was sacked by the Romans under Emperor Carus, and
Guys, Ctesiphon, so here's another thing for you guys to learn. Tisfun or Ctesiphon, that was the capital of the Sassanid Empire, right? I guess where that is right now. It's in Iraq, okay? And this is why a lot of Iranians say, like, hey, Iraq is a fake country. A lot of Iranians say Iraq shouldn't even be a country. Our capital, again, I'm not saying this is what these people say. They're like, Iran's capital is in modern day Iraq. They say Iran's capital shouldn't be Tehran, it should be Ctesiphon, which is in Iraq right now. And like, so they say like this, Iraq is Iraq. They tell Iraqis that, guys, you're not Arab. You're better. Again, I'm not saying this, okay, because these idiots, these nationalist people, they're racist, okay? They're like Saudis, the Gulf Arab countries, they're Arabs, okay? And you guys are one of us. You guys are actually ethnically Persian. Just because you speak Arabic, that doesn't make you Arabic, okay? You guys are ethnically Persian. You've been lied to by these barbaric Arabs, again, their words, not mine, that you are an Arab, so that that they divided you, like they made you think like you're an Arab country. You're not an Arab country, you're Persians, and Iraq is part of Persia. That's what they tell them, okay? And this is like, they keep reminding them that Iran's capital, Ctesiphon, is in modern day Iraq. And they're like, hey, look, you guys look like us. You don't look like those Saudis. You don't look like the Emiratis, right? You look like us. You're part of us. They say like, this is, you know how a lot of Hindus keep telling me like, Armin, you're an Aryan, you know your heritage. This is what a lot of Iranians tell Iraqis. Know your heritage. You're Persian. You're one of us. And this is why Iran, oh my God, guys, there's so much here. Everything is connected. Okay, this is why Iran's government trying to now use, because Iran's government was heavily focused on Islamic narratives. Now they're also focusing on they're trying to use some nationalist Persian narratives as a way to grow their influence around the Middle East. They're not just using Islam anymore. They're using this as well, right? So earlier they were like Arabic, and now they're realizing, hey, maybe focusing on Persian as a language could also help us gain more influence, and make these other Arab-speaking countries be more loyal to Tehran. So one thing they're doing is, for example, they're building schools that teach Persian in countries like, Iraq and Lebanon. And like, wow, imagine this, like the Islamic Republic, a country that was originally was like, yeah, everything needs to be in Arabic instead of Persian. Now they're like going to Arab-speaking countries and like, hey, we're going to teach you how to speak Persian. So things are changing a bit, right? Okay.
And most of Armenia was seceded to Diocletian. In the time of Nars, the seventh king of the empire, other conflicts with the Romans happened, and the conditions of the peace treaty were heavy. Persia would give up territory to Rome, making
Rome is winning.
the Tigris the boundary between the two empires.
You're gonna lose your capital. I have a suggestion for if you ever end up having an empire, maybe don't put your capital so close to the enemy, because it doesn't take much for them to be able to make your entire country collapse.
After this defeat, the king gave up the throne.
Actually, unless you have expansionist dreams, then you want to maybe put your capital so close to the border.
After this defeat, the king gave up the throne to his son, Hormizd II. These events led to instability, and hostile internal movements spread throughout the land. The new king suppressed revolts in Sakistan and Kashan. He was unable to control the nobles, and was subsequently killed by Bedouins on a hunting trip in 309. Following Hormizd II's death, northern Arabs started to ravage and plunder the western cities of the empire.
This is where it started. Northern Arabs. Okay, something it's not telling you is that these Arabs they're finally part of the equation here. Okay, but before this is the key thing that is missed. Okay, hold on. It didn't mention this was an important part. Let me go back to the map and then come back here. Okay. You see the Romans. This is the red is fighting the Persians. This is the blue. Okay. You see all this area that is not blue or red? These are where the Arabs are, okay? And the Arabs, when it comes to, were not a big deal. They're just like, compared to these empires that were considered just uncivilized, desert-dwelling barbarians, right? But look, they were in the middle of these two giant empires that were fighting with each other, okay? So what happens is that the Arabs, they're different tribes, right? And some of these tribes are obviously looking to make more money and have more influence. And some of these tribes become loyal to the the Roman Empire starts paying them money to attack Persian interests because look, it's very strategic. So it's right between the two empires. They're basically right between two empires, right? So the Romans start paying them to become their proxy. And guess what? The Persians do the same thing. There are some tribes that the Persian pay. The Persian Empire starts paying some Arab tribes to be the Persian proxy. So different Arab tribes start fighting on behalf of the Romans, and the other ones fight on behalf of the Sassanids, the Persian Empire, right? And guess what? This this ends up working in against both the Romans and the Persians because just as United States and Saudi Arabia has learned recently, when you arm proxies, sometimes these proxies become so powerful because you give them resources and money and influence, and they want one time, it's gonna, there's gonna be a day that they might come and bite back, right? They're gonna bite back the hands that feed them, especially if you stop feeding them, if you stop paying them. You already gave them a lot of connections, a lot of, so this is exactly what happened here, okay? So the Sassanid Empire has a lot of money and the Roman Empire has a lot of money, but they keep spending it on warfare and they run out at some point, especially because both of these empires were hit by plague. Both of them were hit by the plague. And guess who wasn't hit by the plague? Guess who wasn't hit by the plague? Huh? Think about it. The Persian Empire, what do they have? Where do these people live? They have giant cities. They have rats and they have sewage and everything is like the people are buying the food from the same places and they have crowded markets. So does the Roman Empire. They have giant cities. Who doesn't have cities? The Arabs, they don't have cities. They are desert-dwelling Arabs. So guess what? The Arabs were not hit by the plague. So you have the Persian Empire and you have the Roman Empire. They're losing a lot of money because they're fighting each other. And they also get hit by the plague. But the Arabs are not losing money. They're making money because they're the proxies of the Persian Empire and Roman Empire. And then at some points, the Persian Empire and the Roman Empire stop paying them because they're running out of money. They're like, if I'm not receiving your money, maybe we'll come take it by force. How about that? And these are two empires that have been very tired of very exhausted, lost a lot of resources. And the defenses are low. The guards are down because they've been fighting each other. And the Arabs are like, we got addicted to all the money you were sending our way. And when you stop sending it, we're just going to come take it. Your cities seem to be up for grabs. Well, let's see what happens. British Pakistani atheist is saying, back in those days, the more aggressive you were, the more likely you were to succeed against your neighbors, obviously taking into account size of the armies. I don't think you can make a general statement like that, but we'll continue.
Conflicts with the Romans happened, and the conditions of the peace treaty were heavy. Persia would give up territory to Rome, making the Tigris the boundary between the two empires. After this defeat, the king gave up the throne to his son, Hormizd II. These events led to instability, and hostile internal movements spread throughout the land. The new king suppressed revolts in Sakistan and Kashan. He was unable to control the nobles, and was subsequently killed by Bedouins on a hunting trip in 309.
Okay, we got that.
Following Hormizd II's death, Northern Arabs started to ravage and
So now we're talking about the northern Arabs. I'm saying it like he said Arabs. He's saying Arabs. Okay, northern Arabs. I don't know. Northern Arabs started attacking
plunder the western cities of the empire.
western cities of the empire, and I bet you. Okay, this is a guess. I bet you the Arabs could not believe how fast they managed to cut into the Persian Empire. Okay, they were like, "Why is this easier than we thought it would be?" Like, I think they were like gonna go and just attack a couple of cities and take their money and stuff like that. But they were like, when they started attacking the Persian Empire, they were like, "This is like cutting like a hot knife through butter. Like, why is this? This is too easy, right?" And maybe that's one of the reasons they thought like, "Wow, maybe we must have God on our side because we're like this empire is just falling on itself."
Persian nobles killed Hormizd II's eldest son, blinded the second, and imprisoned the third. The throne was reserved for Shapur II, the unborn child of one of Hormizd II's wives, and it's believed that he was crowned before he was born. The crown was placed upon his mother's belly. The structure was controlled by his mother and by nobles until he was old enough to rule. Shapur II assumed power, and he proved to be a rather energetic leader, taking the empire to its largest extent, taking advantage of the weakened Roman Empire.
Oh, look at this, guys. Do you see these blue parts? This is exactly what Bahrain and some other places. This is why those, the United Arab Emirates and everything else. This is why the current nationalists today, they think like this should also be part of Persia, because it was at one point.
The time in which Shapur II ruled could be considered as a golden era. The king had a harsh religious policy. Under his rule, the ascent was put on Zoroastrianism.
So yeah, this is, by the way, Shapur, like, look at this. A lot of people think like, Zoroastrians were so tolerant and Muslims were so intolerant. They forced their religion on us. Nope. Zoroastrians also were very strict at some times, and they were forcing their religion. They were very strict, and they were forcing their religions on other people as well. So listen to this as well, in case people like, if in case somebody wants to come and like try to whitewash Zoroastrianism.
Era. The king had a harsh religious policy. Under his rule, the ascent was put on Zoroastrianism, their religion. Heresy and apostasy were punished.
Heresy and apostasy were punished by a Zoroastrian king. Heresy and apostasy were punished. Tell people this. Next time somebody be like, Islam is evil, Zoroastrianism is tolerant, we are so peaceful, accepting. Like, you guys have your own history.
And Christians were persecuted.
Yeah, okay, but so Hindu historians saying, but you're talking about individuals, not the ideology itself. Yeah, okay, but you're saying does Zoroastrianism have totalitarian policies built into it? The problem with religion is when you have Zoroastrianism throughout the history changed a lot. Okay, you keep adding stuff to it. You eliminate some stuff that was in Zoroastrianism before. Then during the Sassanid Empire, was considered a heresy in Zoroastrianism. But the point is that when you have magic on your side, anything, you could argue for anything, okay? This is the point, is like, is it built into it or is it not built into it? Well, if it's not built into it, you could just build it into it. Like, what do you need? Like, hey, I'm Shahanshah, chosen by God, I'm divine authority, and I'm gonna say, it is built into it, right? Why? Because God told me so. There you go. That's all the excuse you need. I'm just saying, you could change the religion. The problem is not just what is written in there or not in there. The problem is you shouldn't just be focused on the conclusions. Do I like the conclusions or not the conclusions? You have to focus on the methodology that you use to come to the conclusions. Okay, you have to focus on whether you're looking at divine authority, faith, revelation, all that bull crap. You could make up whatever the hell you want, okay? When you look at the scientific process, when it comes to like logical fallacies, Occam's razor, when you rely on tools like that, then you're gonna get more useful, more helpful results that benefits humanity as a whole. Okay, so again, don't focus on the conclusions. Focus on whether the methodology is good or not. Katie saying they get wet because Cyrus made the first ever declaration of human rights. By that logic, every region of the world has something to go back to instead of moving forward. It's stupid. Yeah. I mean, we could acknowledge that. Yeah, Cyrus's cylinder was pretty good compared to other people around him. But again, you're right. The reason why they focus on the past so much is because they have nothing to show for today.
So religion was important in the time of this king. The Christianization of the Roman Empire by Constantine the Great created more Christian influence for this empire.
Oh my god, we got a super chat. £5 super chat by Shantaram. £5 saying hashtag Guru Armin. Yes, Guru Armin is the only guru you need. Should I have a blasphemy rule for yeah. Okay, by the way, this earlier we had another live stream and somebody normalized hashtag simp for Guru Armin, so that's a good hashtag to use as well.
At the time of his death, the Persian Empire was stronger than ever, with its enemies to the east pacified and Armenia under Persian control.
Armenia under Persian control. This is why when this Azerbaijan-Armenia conflict happened, there are some people in Iran, or like some Iranians, who argue, like, you know what, both Armenia and Azerbaijan are fake countries anyway. They should be part of Iran. And guess what? The Ottoman Empire is saying this. The Turks. The Turks are also saying, like, Azerbaijan should be part of Turkey because of the Ottoman Empire. So Azerbaijan, by the way, if both Turkey and Iran one day become like a superpower, like I doubt that it will ever happen, but if that happens, they're going to be fighting over Azerbaijan. Azerbaijan is going to be like, Turkey is going to be like, that's part of Turkey, and Iran is going to be like, no, that's part of Iran. So that's going to be amazing. Like, I could see an alternative history. I mean, you keep going back to that anyways, right? You had the Achaemenids versus the Greek, and then you had future empires in Persia versus the Romans, and then you had the Safavids versus the Ottomans. These two places seem to be the main, up until the Mongols came and just changed everything. Basically, the Mongols came in like, hey, we're going to shake the whole world and nothing is going to be like it was before. But up until then, it seemed to be like this was just a repeat fight of two empires. It was like wherever empire is, the Persians are running, and whatever is west of it, these were the two superpowers that kept on fighting with each other, right? All the time. Like, no matter how many times you shake things up, would be one empire that was Persian Empire, and the other empire that was either the Ottomans, to the west of the Persian Empire, that was whether the Ottomans or the Romans or the Greeks, and that was the main battle at all times, every time. And you keep one side keeps losing, but it keeps coming back to that, right? But I guess no matter how many times you shake things up, that's what the norm was. But I guess the Mongols shook the whole world so much to the core that they're just like, after that, I guess it was like, yeah, I mean, maybe soon after that, not right after that. Or like, I guess we have things that are completely changed now, right? However, some people are saying, given that this was always the norm, we're going to go back to the norm. And I'm like, yeah, sure, in the dreams. Like, some people are predicting that this whole, the British Empire and the now what they call the U.S. Empire, these are just like anomalies that just couldn't. This is not the way the world runs, and these will end soon. And we're gonna go back to the Persian Empire and whatever is the west of Persian Empire. That's gonna go back to those. So, like these are mostly like people that on both sides that are hoping that they become a superpower again, and they're gonna say like, yeah, Turkey is gonna turn back into the whatever the Ottoman version of, get their Ottoman dreams, and the Persians are going to get back to that. Yeah, like, again, all of this is nonsense. That's never going to happen, but this is their prediction, right? You know how the Christians have, like, their own, end of the world, prophecies, and the Muslims have that too. This is the prophecies of Iranian nationalists and Turkish nationalists. These are their nonsensical prophecies. Yeah, Katie's saying U.S. empire question mark. Well, they say that for all, for in all, technically they say United States might not be considered by today's. They are coming up with new definitions of empire, right? So they're like saying like Iran, for example, it wants to bring back Persian empire, but empires today are not going to be the same as empires before. Like this is a modern version of empire, right? So you have right now they say you have the U.S. empire because of us all this defense contracts and everything around the world. It's banks. And its military bases all around the world. They say technically that's an empire, okay, even if we don't call it that, right? And they say that then you have the China model, that China is going out and using the debt model to make all these countries around the world be have these countries around the world its leash. They say this is a new way of doing empire, and they're saying the Islamic Republic of Iran is also doing that. Like technically, like the Islamic Republic of Iran didn't go and invade Syria, Lebanon, and Iraq, but the new way of doing empire is kind of like more sneaky. You go and you go middle with their politics, and you put your own proxies in their parliament, and you make sure like I don't know the president is loyal to you. They just see that as a modern way of doing empire. So that's how they see it. Again, yeah, U.S. Smithy saying U.S. proxy states, right? So again, and they're saying United States is an empire and China is an empire around the world because based on this new model of what is considered to be an empire, technically Iran becomes an empire too, and they just get hard thinking about Iran being an empire. Again, I'm not saying this is the correct definition. I'm just saying this is how they see things.
After his death, more than 100 years of relative peace with Rome started. In this period, just 2 brief conflicts between these 2 empires happened. Also in this era, Sassanid religious policy was different by other kings. Despite a series of weak leaders, the administrative system established during Shapur II's reign remained strong, and the empire continued to function effectively. Incursions, other wars, reforms, and different rulers existed between 379 and 500 AD. This was an interesting period, and we will give more details in the video about the Sassanid collapse. The start of the 6th century can be seen as a second golden era for this empire. Again, many other conflicts happened between the Persians and the Romans. Large important battles existed at Dara in 530 and Callinicum in 531. The Byzantine...
We're getting close to the end, guys. Look at this. 532 CE.
Emperor Justinian I paid to the Sassanid king.
Look, that's a lot of years. Like when we first saw the Arabs attacking the Persians, that was like, still it's been a couple of years, right? So it wasn't just the ending that this whole problem with the Arab tribes happened. Like it was happening for a while.
Khosrow I, 440,000 pieces of gold. In 540,
Wait, what? What's this gold again? What is this about? I don't understand.
The Byzantine Emperor Justinian I paid to the Sassanid king, Khosrow I, 440,000 pieces of gold. In 540, Khosrow broke the treaty and invaded Syria, sacking Antioch and extorting large sums of money from a number of other cities. And again, the Roman-Sassanid wars were on. Probably the most important of Khosrow's achievements was seeking knowledge, and the special attention given to the Academy of Gondishapur.
I hear that this is the academy that people mention every time you say like, why were the Greeks and the Romans doing so much science? Where was the Persians at with their science? They're like, what? They built this, they had this university, and they're like, okay, you had that. Can you name a couple of major thinkers or philosophers that came and changed the whole world's way of thinking? And they're like, no. Like, well, the Greeks, I mean, they had like, okay, guys, let me tell you something that pisses off anti-Islamic Iranians, okay? And, okay, so the Persians, okay, none of the pre-Islamic history of Iran produced a thinker or a philosopher or a scientist that anyone remembers. Okay? But Iran, under Arab rule, produced a whole ton of Persians that are remembered for their philosophy and their books and their science and their poetry and a whole bunch of other stuff, right? The most famous one of them being Ibn Sina, or Evesina. The English version of it is Ibn Sina. Yeah. So, here. But again, this university, like they keep mentioning this as a way to be like, well, we had universities too. Like, yeah, you wanna bring your universities, compare it to the Romans and Greek universities. Like, who do you think is gonna win that battle, right? Who do you think is gonna win that battle? Like, can you guys? Every major, like mass majority of the major thinkers of the ancient world, were either Greek, Roman, or Chinese.
We're on. Probably the most important of
Yeah, Khwarezmi. Yeah, exactly. Khwarezmi is another good example. Again, great thinkers that came, the greatest thinkers that we remember today from Persia, they were from the time of Islam. Yeah, Avicenna. Okay, the real name of Avicenna is Ibn Sina. That's another famous Persian example. Or Razi. Razi is another example. Katie's saying, I would say any empire in history which got to a point of having really good economy got away from religion and started science and culture, architecture. Well, I mean, here's the thing. Yes, but not to this level of the Greeks or the Romans. Okay? I mean, technically, obviously, the Sassanid Empire and the Achaemenid Empire, they must have been doing a crap ton of science. I mean, you can't do science when you cannot build the things that they built unless they knew how to measure this stuff. They had technology, they had science, but again, it's not close to the level of what the Greeks managed to do. It does become they did become very influential. Under the Abbasid dynasty, which was an Islamic dynasty, what they call the golden age of Islam, I call it the golden age of Arabs and Persians, because it became a golden age not because of Islam, became a golden age in spite of Islam, right? And yes, it's usually because of a lot of wealth, right? Because of wealth, you actually up managing to have a lot of extra resources to spend on technology, philosophy, poetry, art, and all that stuff. That's usually how it happens, okay? But again, the Sassanid Empire had a lot of wealth. The Achaemenid Empire, Hachamenid, I'm going to say Hachamenid Empire, had a lot of wealth. They were giant empires, but they still didn't produce a level of science and technology or philosophy that reshaped the way the world thought. I mean, technically, Cyrus the Great kind of changed the way ruling, kings looked at ruling over their people, so he did do that. But again, nothing close to the Greeks or even the Abbasids. The Abbasids, like the House of Wisdom in Baghdad, but the Abbasids completely revolutionized the world. It was like it was a potential renaissance. It was not just a renaissance. I mean, it was a renaissance, but it was about to mature from being a renaissance to becoming the age of enlightenment of the Arab and the Persian world, until people like Ghazali were like, no, screw that, we're going to go back to being morons. Anyways. Let me continue. Oh, here. Adam's saying, not because of Islam, but because of economic prosperity. Exactly, Adam. Exactly.
Of Khosrow's achievements was seeking knowledge and the special attention given.
Yeah, and also like the Indians were doing some stuff as well. The ancient Indians, they had some interesting math stuff that came out of there, interesting philosophy. I mean, philosophy came, a lot of world-changing philosophy also came out of China, but again, nobody got even close to what the Greeks managed to do when it comes to changing the world, until the Abbasid dynasty, which was an Islamic dynasty.
Given to the Academy of Gondishapur. This academy was one of the most important centers of learning in the.
Hey, what's the name again of this? I keep hearing it. I never memorized the name. I'm gonna memorize it now, I hope.
Knowledge and the special attention given to the Academy of Gondishapur.
Gondishapur.
This academy was one of the most important centers of learning in the world's history. as it sought texts from all of the neighboring countries, from Greek philosophers to Iranian religious texts and Indian works as well.
You see all this text, okay? The amount of text that the Persian Empire produced, the amount of stuff that they actually wrote down, is nothing compared to how much like stuff that the Greek and the Roman Empire wrote down. Like they were, those mofos were writing down everything.
Translating them not only to Middle Persian, but also Greek and other languages. Also, he was tolerant about other religions, and it's believed that one of his sons became a Christian. Around 570,
Gajian is saying the Sassanid royal family fled to the Chinese Tang dynasty. The communists use it as a pro-Iran propaganda. All right, let me actually go back here. I'm pausing too much. I know I shouldn't be pausing this much. Hold on.
Languages. Also, he was tolerant about other religions, and it's believed that one of his sons became a Christian.
By the way, if you ever are confused who we're talking about, look at the bar at the top. You know who exactly we're talking about.
Around 570, the half-brother of the king Yemen requested Khosrow's intervention, and the Sassanids were able to establish a base in South Arabia. Another Persian expedition.
Wait, Khosrow. No, that's Khashayar. I keep confusing the Khos with each other. Never mind. I'm confused with my kings.
Was sent in 598 that successfully annexed southern Arabia as a Sassanid province.
Yes.
Khosrow's son Hormizd took the throne in 579, but was overthrown by a coup. Khosrow II was put on the throne, but was defeated by the Persian general Bahram Chobin, who became king. Khosrow II fled to Byzantine territory and asked the Byzantine Empire for help against the usurper.
That looks like a lightsaber.
In exchange for some territories in Caucasus. The combined Byzantine-Persian army raised a rebellion against Bahram, defeating him at the Battle of Blarathan in 591. When Khosrow was subsequently restored to power, he kept his promise. After Maurice was overthrown and killed in 602, however, Khosrow II used the murder of his benefactor as a pretext to begin a new invasion. An unprecedented expansion happened. Persians attacked the west and captured Antioch in 611. Jerusalem fell in 614. Alexandria in 619. And the rest of Egypt by 621. On the map, the Sassanids took control over a large territory, being compared even with their ancient predecessors.
Yeah, look at this. These are territories that were not being ruled by Persians. Only the Achaemenids. Hachemenish. I'm going to say Hachemenish. The Hachemenish Empire. Like, what is the English again? Achaemenids. Achema something Empire. Hachemenish is the right word. They're like, look, Persians haven't been here for a very long time. We must be the descendants of the Hachemenish dynasty.
The Achaemenids.
Oh, Achaemenids, thank you. Yeah, they're like, yes, look at us. We're becoming as big as the Achaemenids. We're back in Egypt. The Persians are back in Egypt like the Achaemenids.
Sassanian art borrowed from ancient Near Eastern and Greco-Roman traditions to express a new Iranian cultural identity, particularly manifest in prestigious monuments and objects connected to the royal court. Secure dates from many Sassanid buildings and works of art are difficult to determine, in part due to the lack of material from documented archaeological contexts.
And because they didn't write stuff down as much.
Trade, conquest, and diplomacy resulted in the diffusion of Sassanian luxury arts, both east and west, during the 4 centuries of Sassanian rule. But this huge achievement exhausted the Persian armies.
Yes. Did you hear that? Did you guys hear that? This huge achievement exhausted the Persian armies. It's almost as if it wasn't even an achievement. Maybe if you just didn't expand all the way to Egypt, you wouldn't all of a sudden find yourself spread so thin, and your empire would still stand. So the achievement exhausted the Persian Empire. Maybe you shouldn't call it an achievement then.
Population was overtaxed, and the effort led to economic problems and instability.
Yeah, this is just hey, maybe these empires should learn something from. This is the British Empire, the British Empire, hey, we're spreading ourselves too thin. We can't pay for all this giant empire. And the British Empire actually was the smartest empire, I guess, because they were like, we're just gonna quit instead of falling apart completely. So other empires were like forced out of being an empire. The British Empire were like, we're just gonna go into our tiny island, and you guys could just do your own thing everywhere else. They realized that this is not a good idea. What the hell, Adam? Armin be proud of being a Persian dude? LOL. No, never. I think that's a joke. I would never be proud of something that I have no control over.
All this combined with the expansion of a new power and religion will put an end to this empire, just after 30 years since their huge expansion. But this is a topic for another video.
Guys, what happened? Like, you're talking about the Sassanid Empire. You're not going to show us the Arabs invaded. This is... Oh, guys, look, we're so close. 650 CE. Show the Arab invasion. You're not going to show us that? What other video? Just, like, show the end. Show the end. God damn it, like, so anticlimactic. Like, what the hell? We were talking about the Sassanid Empire, and you're not going to show their fall?
Thank you so much for...
Are you serious? You're not going to show the fall? Where's the other... What? You're not going to show the Arab invasion? That's part of the... Oh, I guess it says the title is The Rise of the Sassanid Empire. Ah. Come on. Do you have a video on the fall? I want to see a video on the fall of the... You don't have the rise. This one we already watched, but this is about the Achaemenid Empire. No, there is no Sassanid. You said another video, and you never made that video. You never made that video. Come on, this channel, Knowledge. Yeah, make that video. No, I want to see what happened. Anyways, I hope another channel makes that video. I've been looking. Show yeah, Turtle's like, show us the Arab invasion. You just sounded like a Persian nationalist, Armin. Wait, I sounded like the opposite. I was excited about seeing the Arab invasion of Persia. Isn't that the opposite of it? Persian nationalist. That's very noble of me. Thank you. Yes, I am very noble. That's what I'm proud of. I am very. Here's the thing. I'm very proud of being extremely smart. Like, yeah, that's what I'm proud of. Okay, and I'm also noble apparently, so I could be proud of that as well. Am I proud of being Persian? A zero. I am a zero proud of being Persian. Okay. Peace Lover saying there are many similarities between Avesta and Rigveda. Yeah, it's almost as if they had something to do with each other. All right, I'm gonna end this here. We already went above an hour. I'm gonna go. By the way, in a couple hours, I'm gonna schedule our Q&A that is coming up. So anybody who's complaining about Armin, why are you not bringing people up? That Q&A is just gonna be about that. Okay, so stop complaining. Oh, Rev is saying that's being a traitor technically. Fine, right? Put me down as a traitor. Traitor to what? Yeah, he did some foreplay and didn't finish. He did foreplay and effing, but never made the. Yeah, what a tease! That channel. It never he just left us hanging. That channel. Terrell is saying, to me it sounded more like, oh, you are leaving out what they did. Oh, okay, that's how it sounded. No, I was excited to see the invasion, and I know you didn't mean that. I'm just having a bit of fun here. Okay, that's good. That's fine. Oh, look at this comment. Lalo is saying, you so handsome, can I marry you, Armin? You're a bit too late on that, but it's okay. You could dream about it. You could think about me. Wait, are you a girl or a boy? I answered you. Answer me, Armin. No, but think about me tonight when you're going to sleep. Tell me if it was good. All right. I'm going to go. Guys, you know what time it is? It's time
Subscribe if you have watched 1 hour of this video without subscribing. There's something seriously wrong with you. There's something seriously wrong with you. It doesn't. We have so much fun in this channel. I just live streams all the goddamn time, and you watch 1 hour of me talking to you and you didn't subscribe. What on